Chapter 5. "Don't you worry, Jack," Robert said, stepping forward. "We'll take things from here." "Give us the princess!" shouted a high-pitched voice from the back of the mob. Jack stood on his toes to see who'd spoken. "Wait, was that Justin?" he asked. "Justin? You're like 8 years old."
10! Justin shouted back. "Shut up," said Robert, glaring at the other boys, who all quickly quieted down. "The princess needs a husband, right? Well, I'm just a man for the job." A few of the boys raised objections to that, but a second look from Robert shut him up again. "She's not looking for someone to marry," Jack said, moving to stand between Robert and the princess. A thought occurred to him. "You're not engaged already, are you?" he asked May. "I'm 14, she said. "And?" Jack said. "So? Now, I'm not," she shouted. "Get her!" someone yelled, building up the mob's courage. "She's mine!" someone else yelled. "I love you, princess!" yelled Justin. "Give us a minute, okay?" Jack said, then pushed Robert backward and slammed the door shut. "What is going on?" May asked, her voice getting higher pitched by the minute. "We've got a problem," Jack said, shoving his back against the door. A second later, his whole body shook as Robert pounded on the door. "Let us in, Jack!" Robert yelled from outside. "There's nowhere for you to go!" Jack considered that for a moment. Robert had a point. The boys would see them if they tried to sneak out one of the cottage's small windows. "Open the door!" Robert yelled, and the other boys began to join in. Jack sighed, then turned around and yanked the door open. "Listen," he yelled. "I said give me a minute. I'll bring her back out then, and you can all fight over her." With that, he slammed the door shut again, then whirled around, only to yell out in surprise when he found the princess standing an inch away from him, staring at him angrily. "What is the deal?" May yelled at him. "They want to marry you," Jack said, pushing past her. "If one of them marries you, then he becomes a prince and gets his own kingdom." "Marry me?" May said, following closely behind Jack as he made his way through the cottage to the fireplace. "I'm 14. "You said that already," Jack said as he moved the wood in the fireplace aside. He levered the grate beneath it with one hand, then reached in with the other and pulled out a bag covered with soot. "Hold this for a second," he said to the princess, handing her the sack. He lowered the grate and stood up. May just glared at him, now completely covered with ash. "Thanks for that," she said. He smiled, grabbing the bag back. "They're just cinders, Your Highness. You can pretty yourself up later. For now, let's deal with the boys, okay?" Jack walked to the door, but May didn't move. He glanced back with a questioning look. "You're not helping me just so you can marry me, right?" she said suspiciously. Jack laughed. "Nah," he said, and she relaxed a bit. "I'm keeping my options open in case something better comes along." As he turned away from her, he could almost feel the heat of her hateful gaze burrowing into the back of his head. Before Robert could pound the door again, Jack pulled it open. "Everyone back up!" he shouted, pushing Robert and a few other boys away from the doorway so he and May could get out. The village boys grudgingly backed up, silently waiting to hear him speak. Jack leapt onto the pile of firewood next to the door and addressed his audience. "Gentlemen," he shouted, "you all know that the last thing in the world I should be doing is helping this princess. We can all agree that I have no idea what I'm doing, but you're all obviously much smarter and stronger than me." After a few boys voiced their agreement, Jack continued. "Still, only one of us can help the princess on her quest." "Why?" asked Justin. "Because only one of us can marry her and become a prince," replied Jack. "Will someone shut him up?" A resounding thump answered his question, and the top of Justin's head disappeared from within the group of boys. "Thank you," Jack said. "No problem," said a deep voice from the back. "But still, we need a way to figure out who will get the honor," Jack said, looking up thoughtfully. "The question is how to choose which of us is the most worthy." At this, various suggestions came flying from the crowd. "We fight for it." "No, we should race." "We all know about your stupid magic shoes, Wallace. We're not racing." "Gentlemen, gentlemen!" Jack interrupted loudly. "There's only one way to decide this." He held up the bag so they could all see it. "It just so happens that my grandfather brought back the incredible, powerful Eye of Courage from one of his adventures. In fact, he plucked it right out of the head of the Cyclops of Caterpoil." Jack paused for some impressed murmuring, then continued. "Exactly. Now, you may not have heard of it, but the Eye of Courage is perfect for our little problem. Basically, if you look at the eye and aren't completely fearless within your heart of hearts, it kills you dead." The impressed murmurs immediately turned to stunned silence. "Nice, huh?" Jack said with a smile. "I think we'd all agree that only the bravest, most courageous of us should be the one to help the princess. So all we need to do is to take turns looking at the eye, and whoever is still standing can take the princess." "Are you kidding me with this?" May whispered to Jack. He ignored her. "Who's first then?" Jack asked the crowd. At first, no one moved. A few of the boys realized they had some urgent chore or errand they had to do right away, while others just silently slipped away. Within a minute, the mob was half the size. "Is there no one brave enough to face the eye?" Jack asked, faking surprise. "She's a princess, guys. Isn't she worth the chance that you'll fall over dead right here?" "I'll take that chance," Robert said, grinning arrogantly. He stepped forward, towering over Jack by at least a foot. Out of the corner of his eye, Jack noticed the fairy in May's hair dig herself in deeper, hiding from the boy who'd been hunting her earlier that day. "Just between you and me," Robert whispered in Jack's ear, "I know you're lying. Still, I'll play along and back up your story. That way, I get the princess, and no one argues. You've got a deal, Jack whispered back, and opened the bag for Robert to take a look. Robert flashed the mob a smile, then turned and stuck his head into the bag. At which point, Jack drove his knee right up into Robert's face. The older boy went stiff, shook for a second, then collapsed to the ground, the bag still covering his head. A collective gasp went through the crowd as Jack carefully removed the bag from Robert's head. None of the mob had seen what actually happened, as Robert's body had blocked their view. Guess he wasn't brave enough, Jack said sadly, then turned to the crowd. Who's next?